A very warm welcome to all of you viewers. Thank you so much for joining me this morning on Newsmakers, the special series from the Sentinel, wherein we speak with some of the top voices from the Northeast. And my guest today is Mr. Arman Ali. He is a well-known disabled rights activist, and he is also the executive director at the National Center for Promotion of Employment for Disabled People. Mr. Ali, thank you so much and welcome to the Newsmakers.
Thank you for having me here.
Pleasure. So let me start by asking you about, have we as a society and maybe the government as well have forgotten about the specially abled, the disabled people during this crisis period, the health emergency that we are going through? What is your feeling at this point of time?
In any given circumstances, in a regular circumstances, disabled people, the needs are never met. It's never at an optimum level. The basic fundamental rights like education, employment, the freedom to go from one place to another, and so on and so forth, is always compromised.
Right.
And imagine in a situation like a pandemic, they are the worst affected. Somebody who are not even thought of. And disability always remains an afterthought. You know, when everything is done, then you look at disability as a charity issue and not part of a development or a disaster or so. So it has been always an issue where people with disability has to fight for their survival. And in situations like the present one we have, where one would imagine to be on a priority, disabled people are the first to be deprioritized when you look at food and healthcare and any other such requirement.
Right. So, of course, we have a lot of guidelines that have come in from the Disaster Management Authority. We have the legislation there that was passed way back in 2016. Has these things come to the help of the specially abled people? You, in a way, have already said that not much is being done. What is the government or other agencies doing to help out this section of people?
I hate doing this, and and me and my fellow colleagues in the sector, it always seems like, give you an image which is not true. But the fact remains that even after the 3 years of passing of this important legislation, the Rights of Persons with Disability Act 2016, 20th April 2020 was the third year of its enactment. There is no sign of any implementation of this law. This law very specifically talks about maintaining records of disabled people in times of disaster. So the District Disaster Management Authority, the State Disaster Management Authority, and also NDMA have their own guidelines specific to which is in accordance to this law, which talk about doing various measures during times of disaster. And it's irony when the country is in a disaster mode, when NDMA is in force. It's the NDMA. The Prime Minister is the chairman of the National Disaster Management Authority, and the Ministry of Home is into play. I'm sure they must be referring to the laws and the rules. How conveniently one does not look at the provisions for disabled people. It surprises me every single time. I mean, you play with people's life in situations like this, where every day we are losing people and disabled people who are more susceptible to this kind of a virus because of the pre-existing health condition and lower immune system. I think this is very unfortunate.
Right. The whole scenario where nobody seems to be really concerned. And like you mentioned, even otherwise, maybe it's always, comes second to us when it is about the disabled or the specially able people. So the government, we have been talking about so many packages and so many other issues for the general public. So far, I have not heard about anything for the disabled people. Has there been any such thing so far from the
See, the
government side?
first when the first economic package was announced by the Honorable Finance Minister, it talked about giving 1,000 rupees to disabled people over and above of whatever pension they get. Till date,
Right.
they have not received any money, and this is there's no clarity, and people think that one would receive 1,000 rupees per month, but that is not it. For anything you do, the core of anything that you want to do in terms of disaster or otherwise is your communication. How you communicate with people, the public at large. You must have seen, even if you call somebody, there is a 30-second audio
Yes.
on
Yes.
coronavirus.
Right.
And otherwise also, you open newspaper, you watch TV, wherever you go, and this communication is so key. Now, have you ever noticed that these communications are done in a way which is accessible for disabled people? How are people who are deaf accessing it? How are people who are blind are able to access it? About the guidelines and about order. So number one, you are completely not thinking about the needs of disabled people, and if you exclude them from communication and information, it creates a huge barrier. One has no information how to get access to health or get access to this
Right.
500 rupees and so on. I mean, what stops the prime minister to have a sign language interpreter next to him or in a video frame in the same address which is going out? So there's another channel on DD which you have to tune in if
Yes.
you have. I mean, why are we being treated as the second class citizen in this country? I mean, just having a sign language interpreter in the same window or the frame with the prime minister, it sends
Yeah.
out a very loud and clear message. So this is where I am coming from. It's very disheartening.
Absolutely. So, therefore, the fact remains that the government is definitely not doing, maybe not even, I can't even say that they are doing enough that is required, and particularly during these trying times. So, what are some of the challenges that specially able people are facing at this point of time? You've already mentioned that they really do not know how to access healthcare facilities. What about the essentials and also kind of financial aid, everything else? How are they coping with their day-to-day
So
life?
the needs of disabled people are nothing different than anybody else. They
Right.
also need food, ration, medicine. This is what and money to sustain.
Yeah.
So if you say disabled people are not able to get access to, they cannot go to the nearby PDS shop, if the PDA or PDF center, whatever they have, to get the ration themselves, unless they are dependent on a family member. Uh, Banks are not accessible for disabled people. For example,
Right.
people who are blind, despite the RBI guidelines, they are not issued a debit card, for example. So they are not able to go to the ATMs. Banks are out of question. So they, even if they have money in their own account, they are unable to use it in this time when you need the most. Healthcare. So if you're having existing problem, if somebody has diabetes, if you have a psychosocial disability, if someone who is a spinal cord injury, somebody who may need catheter, CIC pipe, and so on. It's not luxury. It's not even comfort. Like it's a need. It's important.
Right.
How do you access it? So most importantly, we did a report. We're going to release a report on the status of disabled people and the COVID-19 situation. People are mostly looking at this pension money. Where is the 500 rupees which we announced, which they have not received? And they're looking for food ration, how to get access to this, and they also look for caregiver support. And disabled people are dependent on their families, and if their families have
Right.
lost their livelihood, who do they go to?
Yes. So also, coming back to your issue of, accessibility to the banks and all, that is something that I have always noticed that particularly in Guwahati, that what I have seen is that most of the banks are anyways not accessible to the specially able people because they don't even have a proper ramp available there. The ATMs don't have proper facilities for the disabled people. So all of these issues, have these been flagged with the government at any point of time?
There is a RBI guidelines for to the banks,
Yes,
which they don't look at it. They just ignore. They have their
yes.
own way of doing things. You
Hmm.
know, it, you dare do something like that to another minority community in this country. You dare do with people who are from the Dalit group. You do with the women. You dare do this with other religious minority in this country. You will not be able to walk away. There will be a protest. There will be a media coverage. But you people are able to just walk over disabled people and just flaunt whatever law and policy are there in the country and do whatever they want on their whims and fancy, just because disabled people continue to be an invisible minority in this country. Okay, and disability been always looked as a charity and a welfare issue, never being part of a development. That remains a challenge, and that's why. I mean, what happens if five disabled people dies? You know, there was a man who killed his own son in Calcutta. He strangled him, psychosocial disability. He has a mental illness. There's a woman who threw four of her babies in the river in UP. And then
Yeah.
so on and so forth. There are many areas. Why are we not looking at these as an important issue? And we must understand that disaster is response, relief, and recovery. And when you do recovery, the principle of any disaster management work is to build back better.
Right.
I will tell you, Oineetom, this interview that you're doing with me right now, or through this
Platform, yes.
digital mode or whatever, this is something disabled people have been asking for years together. That we should work from home. We should be allowed to work from home. When you work with IT companies in other places, this is always an issue. No, how will you do it? Now, because the world is facing problems, these things are the new normal. I
Right.
just tell you that anything which you build on a principle which is friendly for disabled people, or based on a principle of universal design, is friendly for all, it's good for all, and is sustainable.
So, so many challenges there, not just now, but it's been there over the years. So, why do you think the disabled people have failed time and again to be part of the mainstream? When and how can we bring about a change in the mindset? Because I think this is more to do with the mindset issue. Somehow, be it the society or the government, we are just not very conscious about, or maybe we do not care that much as a society for our especially able people around us. So how do you think can these things change, and don't you think it's high time now that we really fix all of these things?
You know, from day for yesterday, you are the sixth person who has asked me this question, and I have no answers to all this. And I think this is a political problem in this country. Disability is not a political issue, and we follow the majoritarian politics across the world. 80% of these people in this world are so-called non-disabled people. They can see, they can walk, they can hear, their hands are all right. So everything, and these are the people who can go and vote and form a government. And those who vote, there is development for that people, those people. And then when the development is done, whatever is left is for welfare, where you are being given substandard wheelchairs and hearing aids and pensions, and you're not. The cost is not around your salary. The cost is around a pension of 500 rupees per month. What do you get in 500 rupees today? So the irony that disabled people are not vote banks, despite being at least 10 crores in this country. And if you don't meet their demand, disabled people cannot form groups, organize themselves as groups and protest. You cannot get 10,000 people in Guwahati or Delhi to come and protest. But if some other minority group they just put one post on a social media, they will gather people in a place and they'll protest and there'll be media coverage. So unless and until there is a political will, and there is no representation of disabled people in the parliament, there is nobody who talks about disability in the parliament. Even if somebody who is a wheelchair user is looked as somebody who is sick and not as a person whose identity is disability. So I think for all of us, it's not only the government. For anybody who, whatever we do, if we don't think of disabled people as people who are like us and their needs are similar and nothing, not that they want rocket science to know, there's no rocket science to know them. And how we include in everything that you do, it will be very important for the times to come to see how sensitive we are to everyone.
All right. During these trying times, has the government or any of the organization or one of the ministries, maybe either at the center or at the state level, come up with a helpline or some such thing so that all those disabled people, if they're facing any kind of a problem, they can reach out?
There are helplines set up by government. The government of Assam has a helpline. Tamil Nadu, there is Goa, there is one. There is one in Punjab. Odisha has a helpline. So these are a few states who are doing well. There is some system. They recognize that disabled. Kerala is a very good example. Which says that they recognize the fact that disabled people are there and there is a need to look into their needs. But there continue to be gaps there because these are all ad hoc measures. Okay. The country went on a lockdown, and then after the guidelines came for disabled people 2 days after that. Very good guidelines issued by the Department of Empowerment for Disabled People, but they look like a request for the government to implement. Why is it a request? Why is it not mandatory? Today you go out without a mask, you will be arrested. You will be charged 500 rupees in Guwahati, if I am correct. But why? But why not the same with disabled people?
Yes.
I mean, this is where the problem is. Everything people know from the time we develop some kind of an understanding. We know that red light, we don't cross road. We know that we don't cut trees. We know that Pakistan is our enemy. But we don't know disabled people are also our people, So it's very sad that because there is no awareness, there is no effort on part of the government to create awareness about disabled people. They are people first, that is need to be understood. And what is the percentage of disabled people who are educated in this country or see any kind of education institution? So there are hard questions. And in these times when everything is going online, how many people with disability or children with disability have access to a laptop or a tablet or a smartphone? And even if they have, are these platforms which has been built have kept in mind the need of their accessibility requirements? So there is a lot of questions to be answered. It only makes you angry and work harder.
Right. So do you see some light at the end of the tunnel? Because if I remember when the present Vice President of India, Venkaiah Naidu, was the Urban Development Minister, he actually, took a lot of steps to ensure that the buildings are disabled friendly. Certain things are put in place so that the people who are specially abled are made comfortable. So do you think that in the coming days things will change, the government will take notice and things will actually be implemented? Because like you said, we have a 3-year-old legislation and nobody seems to even bother to implement what the law says. There are the guidelines from the Disaster Management Authority, but people the authorities conveniently prefer to look the other way. So do you think in the coming days, the disabled people will get their right?
Only when disabled people stop being beneficiaries and play a leadership role. Disabled people have to understand their rights and demand. And it's not a matter of request. And these demands have to come from the remotest of districts in this country. When they don't allow any new development work happen without it being inclusive. The Rights of Persons with Disability Act is a game changer. It's a very strong, powerful legislation. It talks about creating accessibility not only in buildings but also information, transport, and information technology, education, and everywhere. It is making the private sector accountable for the first time. It says that any product or services which is in this country has to be accessible for disabled people. For example, if you are a cab aggregator, for example, if you're a hospitality industry, if you're running a telecom service, you're a health services, and so on and so forth. I mean, we all dependent on so many services on a daily basis. So if this services should have, and there's a timeline to it, and the timeline is over. It's been last year June, the timeline was over. Now when disabled people start using the law and file complaints in various forums, they will be tough for people. I will see this change happening, because I think we Indians understand the hard way. If when you see that you don't get occupancy certificate when you make a building which is not accessible for disabled people, when you are not
Right.
allowed to function a restaurant if you are not accessible for disabled people,
Yes.
if you discriminate persons with disability for on the basis of their disability for a job, your trade license is cancelled. So I think these are, and also incentivizing those people who do recognize
Doing.
disabled people. So I think in times to come, I hope the people with disability will know their rights, use the law,
Yes.
make themselves part of the mainstream society, and not look at small doles. I mean, we all need to struggle and fight.
Right. So, do you think there's a need to, mobilize all the specially able people, the disabled people, make them aware? Do you think more organizations or associations need to come forward, get together, and actually, start a real big movement to get noticed for the authorities, for the society, to, to give that jolt to the authorities and the society, and really change the whole thing for the disabled people?
Oineetom, I don't know. Okay, for me, if I'm a person with disability, I don't need any organization. I am fortunate enough that I am able to articulate my thought. I'm able to talk to you. I've been able to express.
Yes.
But people with disability has this vicious cycle of poverty and disability. They come from villages, rural areas. They're also poor. So this avenue of getting educated, understanding the law, or demand their right, is a struggle. So I think primarily, disabled people need to be recognized as people first. There is
Right.
a need to create awareness in public in general. But and as I said earlier, disabled people are looked as beneficiaries. How many wheelchairs are distributed? Can you believe this country has the Guinness Book of World Record of distributing the highest number of wheelchairs in 1 hour? And you yourself, can you tell me anywhere a person who can get on a wheelchair from the, if you want to get out of your house on a wheelchair, can you get out? Is it possible? Get on the footpath, get on your bus, go to your bank or go to your office or a cinema hall where you don't need anybody's help on an independent. Can you imagine one place where you can go and do it, unless you want to go to a 5-star hotel or a mall? And this is also very urban centric. You will find maybe 2-3 places in Guwahati. How about smaller towns like Dubrugarh, Tinsukia, Nalbari, or so on and so forth? I mean, what stops you? I mean, if we always talk about the country 70 years, 70 years, 70 years. Have you ever seen one campaign which talked about disabled people? What is disability? Do you understand what is disability? It's different when you put one wheelchair user when there is election happening, you put one wheelchair user when there is a census happening, and just to say that they are also included. That's not the idea. What is disability? Like when you look at Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, when you look at Swachh Bharat Abhiyan and Digital India and so on, there's so much awareness about it. Disability as a community, people in general don't know. I also believe that it's not difficult for many people to do this, bring these changes when they are making their infrastructure or doing something. It's just that they don't know. So the Dalit groups, the women groups, this movement has fought for years together. The years, and that is how they have reached where they are, where they're being recognized as a political force, or a participation is being sought. And I think this is where disabled people have to learn, and otherwise also, there's people need to understand what is disability. It's not the physical disability, or some physical deformity in somebody, or not being able to see. That's not disability. The disability is when I'm on a wheelchair, and if I want to go to the school, and if I'm not able to go to the school and sit in the classroom and learn on an equal basis with my other fellow students,
right.
That situation causes disability. When I'm not able to go to the bank and withdraw my own money, that is causing a disability. It's not that I am in some pain all the time. I think I am as comfortable as you are in your body as I am.
Yes.
It needs to be understood by people in general. And nobody wants anybody's sympathy. We are living in a society where we are dependent on each other. You just cannot function independently. We don't live in jungles that you hunt and eat and survive. We are all used to, maids coming to work for us, and laundry services, electricians, plumbers, cooks. And, if nothing else, your own family members help you in your daily chores and so on.
Right. So, but like you,
I rant a lot. Sorry.
No. That's absolutely valid points that you are making, and I hope that somebody from the administration or from the government side or the authorities are listening to this interview, or hopefully they will click and hear this interview, so that some changes, the real ones, are made. People do take notice. The disabled people are considered as part of the mainstream and not as the secondary citizens of the country. Irrespective of whether they are voting or not, I guess it is really time for India also to make the necessary changes, come forward, help the disabled peoples like our brethren, and give them the respect. Stop feeling pity for them. Like you said, that this is not the way forward at all. It's really time that we really do our bit, each one of us. And I'm sure the government will be then forced to do whatever is required. And things really change, starting from the buildings, the banks. In fact, like I have already mentioned, you've pointed out, even the public sector banks do not have the accessibility that is required for the specially abled people. And I feel that the specially able people who are from that weaker section of the society, they are really taken care of. I really hope that things change in the coming days. Any particular thing that you would like to mention as your concluding remarks?
I think it's for everyone, should be sensitive and include disability in no matter what they do. It doesn't cost you fortune, and doesn't cost you money every time. And for disabled people, I think they should make it impossible for people to ignore disability.
Absolutely. We just hope things change, and things really change this time round for the better. Thank you so much, Mr. Arman, for joining us on this live telecast. And thank you, viewers, for watching. Thank you, goodbye, and stay safe.
Thank you.